Did Paul Reed Smith end the Tonewood debate? Hey everybody, Jay Salen here. Welcome back to Jay Salen Guitar. On May 10th, 2024, Chicago Music Exchange hosted a seminar with guitar maker Paul Reed Smith. And of course, almost the first words out of his mouth were about Tonewood, and how people like me are just sitting around in our basements in our underwear blocking ideas. Let's have a look at a clip from that event.
Let's have a disagreement and an argument with the internet. What he said was Tonewood. So let me explain to you and to you and to you what this argument is. You ready? They think for an instrument maker, the woods that you make it out of make absolutely no difference. Which means if I make the guitar out of balsa wood, and I put a rubber nut on it and a rubber bridge and the strings are dead and they're covered in Vaseline, the only thing that makes any difference is the pickup and your new pedal. Is that correct?
First, the guy probably makes millions of dollars a year. His company's net worth has been reported to be around $100 million, and although it's tough to find data on the internet, Forbes magazine did an article back in 2013 that reported the company's revenue for 2012 was around $43.5 million. And I heard a YouTuber say the company made over $80 million last year. So why Paul Reed Smith would even concern himself with what the internet thinks is beyond me. But there he was at the Chicago Music Exchange, singing his same old tune about violin makers, rubber nuts and bridges, and guitars made from balsa wood. At this point, much of his presentation feels like it's almost scripted. He's been making the same claims for over a decade, probably longer. He appeared on an episode of the Dipped in Tone podcast back in November of 2022, and wouldn't you know it, he mentions violins, rubber nuts and bridges, and guitars made from balsa wood. He did a similar presentation 10 years ago at a 2013 TEDx talk where he talks about guitar nuts made from the same material you connect your toilet to your septic tank with. Here's a clip from the Dipped in Tone podcast where Paul uses his standard argument comparing a guitar to a violin.
So I found an argument in Germany when I was over there that I think sticks. If the instrument doesn't matter and it's only the pickup, then a concert violinist would go up to a Neumann microphone and the violin would not matter at all. It's his hands and the microphone. That's it. That's all that matters, according to the internet. What a load of crap.
First, a violin is an acoustic instrument. The wood top on an acoustic guitar or violin or any acoustic instrument is what sort of amplifies the sound. The strings are anchored to the top and they vibrate and cause that top to vibrate like a drum head, and it turns that top wood into almost a big speaker. So of course wood types will affect the sound of an acoustic instrument. But a solid body electric guitar is a different animal altogether. If you play that violin, unplugged to an amplifier in a fairly large room, you will hear it. If you play an unplugged solid body electric guitar in that same room, unless you're standing right next to it, you will barely hear it. You need an amp to produce sound. The strings interrupt the magnetic field of the pickups, and that generates the electrical impulses that get converted to sound by the amp. Wood type, nut material, hardware, etc. have very little impact on that tone. So the people sitting in their basements in their underwear aren't saying wood doesn't matter. They're saying it matters very little. There are so many other factors that impact tone, from the pickups and strings to the tuning stability to the amp and speakers to the mic used to record the guitar to the room the guitar is being played in, or more specifically the room the amp is being recorded in, the temperature and humidity, finally the way the player manipulates the instrument. Not one single thing is responsible for tone. If you want to see a very well done response to Paul's latest comments from the Chicago Music Exchange event, watch the video titled "The Tonewood Debate is Back" from YouTuber KDH. A link will be in the description. He does an excellent job at responding to some of the claims that Paul Reed Smith makes in the Chicago Music Exchange video. I own an Eastman all solid wood acoustic guitar. I literally spent hours inside of Elderly Instruments in Lansing, Michigan, playing just about every guitar in my price range, both plugged in and unplugged, until I found the guitar that sounded the best. I spent about $600, which was actually more than I wanted to spend. When I got the guitar home, it didn't sound the same. It still sounded good, but wasn't quite what I heard at the store. Then I was playing an open mic night one time, and a friend asked if they could play the guitar for their set because they loved how it sounded, which blew my mind because I was struggling to get good tone out of it. They played their set, and I was absolutely shocked. I had never heard my guitar sound so good. It's because I never heard it apart from my lap or on a strap next to my body. Plus, this person was a great guitar player, so it sounded so different. And that's when the light bulb went off and I stopped chasing tone. I still have that guitar after over 10 years, and it still frustrates me. Some days I think it sounds amazing, and some days I think it sounds dead because it's all solid wood. The humidity can affect it. Also, it has a concert-shaped body that doesn't project as well as a dreadnought, and I always play plugged into an amp when I gig, so I'm also hearing that filter as well. I'd like to make a couple points in this video. The first is that Tonewood is a myth, that we are all debating it in the wrong way. And second, because of the way we think about the Tonewood myth, the debate will never be settled despite mountains of research and experiments done that show wood type has very little to no impact on tone. First, let's talk about the debate itself. I'm sure that this debate took on a life of its own once the internet became a popular place for people to have such debates. The debate goes something like this: that the wood you use to build a solid body electric guitar has a major impact on tone. Want warmer tone? Use a wood like mahogany. Want a brighter, sharper tone? Use ash. But it doesn't stop there. This debate extends to neck material, fretboard material, what the guitar nut is made from, the thickness of the trem block, what metal the trem block is made out of, and even whether the pickups are mounted to a pickguard or directly mounted to the bodywood. People like Paul Reed Smith claim that all that has an effect on the tone. Of course, Paul has a vested interest in convincing people that this is the case because he makes very high-end electric guitars and even has a Tonewood library. So how to convince people to pay $6,000 for a guitar? You talk up your incredible quality, but also the wood your guitars are made from. Contrast that with people sitting in their basements debating that wood has anything to do with tone, and we don't have a vested interest. It doesn't matter to us if Tonewood exists or not. We're not the ones selling guitars. Paul is also a showman and a salesman. He has this shtick that he performs, and it gets him attention and free publicity. The very fact that many of us are reacting to his presentation at the Chicago Music Exchange is proof he's very good at getting attention. So what evidence does Paul present to prove his point? Well, that's probably the biggest problem I have with all of his claims. He offers no proof or data to support his claims, none. And he builds guitars. If anyone was capable of doing A/B tests to show the difference that wood makes in tone, it's Paul Reed Smith. But over the decades, he hasn't offered one shred of evidence. Now contrast that with the basement-dwelling people on the internet, and there have been tons of experiments done to both show that wood has an impact and also to show that wood has very little impact. One such person is YouTuber and Nashville guitarist Jim Lill. I'm sure we've all seen Jim Lill's air guitar video that basically went viral, where he created essentially a guitar with no body. And the results are pretty telling. There are so many great videos on this topic. Check out my playlist, The Great Tonewood Debate. One video specifically is titled, Does the Wood Make a Difference in an Electric Guitar? By Strandberg Guitars. And they actually show how different woods appear on a spectrum analyzer. The results are very interesting. But probably the most definitive work on this subject has been done by German professor Dr. Manfred Zollner, and he spent 30 years researching the subject and published a journal titled Physics of the Electric Guitar, Volumes 1 and 2. He covers every conceivable topic related to where guitar tone comes from. He also covers amps and just all kinds of research about sound. His report is written entirely in German, but some English translations exist, and I will post links in the description. Zollner uses science and humor to determine that we have been fooled into thinking that so many things that obviously cost more money can help us achieve better tone. He concludes with, what we hear depends on the sound. No question there, but it also depends on our subjective judgment, which in turn depends on our experience and our current mood. That's where advertising comes in. If we only believe that this super cable sounds special, it will sound very special to us and we will buy it. Anyone who believes in the schlock will actually hear a sound improvement. It's that simple. To assist the faith, some physics come in handy, as will a cool name. Admittedly, schlock would be suboptimal here. And an exorbitantly high price helps as well. Which brings me to my first point, and that is that the Tonewood debate will never be resolved in any meaningful way because people believe in Tonewood. A YouTuber named John from the channel Play and Trade Guitars had this to say about Smith's presentation and about the whole idea of Tonewood.
And all the ways that you can manipulate the way that that string vibrates, apart from just the signal path, there are 10,000 ways that you can manipulate the way that that string moves. And I'm not going to pretend for a second that the wood is not a part of that equation. And I'm also going to argue that the wood is an important part of that equation. And I'll grab two other guitars that, to me, like the first thing I kind of woke up and thought to myself as I was kind of thinking about all this, if you want the simplest explanation for why it matters in a quote-unquote solid body electric guitar, it's how different these two guitars sound. Now, according to the argument that tone woods don't matter, these Les Pauls really don't have any business sounding any different. And yet, here you are with a Les Paul ES that sounds completely different than a solid body Les Paul. And that's completely based on the construction of the woods. So to dismiss the idea that the woods have no input into the sound of the electric is just silly. And this is one of the biggest ways to differentiate the way that that string is going to vibrate. There's a resonance going on with the guitar body itself that is affecting the way that that guitar string vibrates, that is feeding into that overall summation, some of it which is beyond just your brain or an audio graph or a scientific chart. And if that's the way that you want to approach guitar playing, I just feel sorry for you, because you get to be part of something way bigger that is so beyond us and so essentially magic. And if you don't think it's beyond science what happens when you play guitar, you're not playing enough guitar, and I hope you keep playing to get to that point.
So that speaks volumes. He's basically saying that Tonewood is real because he believes it and it is magic. Those that deny Tonewood are using empirical data to support their stance, and those that believe in Tonewood are not only using some side-by-side comparisons, but largely, I think, probably overwhelmingly, those who think Tonewood affects the tone of a solid body electric guitar simply believe it does. And that settled it for them. So the ones trying to prove that wood does not affect tone of a guitar are simply yelling into the wind. Now, why do I think that Tonewood is a myth? Those that believe in Tonewood are saying that wood affects the tone of a guitar and that the counter argument is that it doesn't affect the tone. But the real point that seems to be far overlooked by both sides of the argument is, if wood affects the tone of a solid body electric guitar, then, wait for it, all wood is Tonewood. If mahogany makes the guitar sound one way, then basswood will affect the tone. Poplar, maple, oak, zebra wood, all will affect the tone and therefore should be considered Tonewood. And not just wood, any material you choose to build a guitar out of will have some kind of impact on tone. That said, who decides what wood is good for tone and what wood is bad? Well, apparently people like Paul Reed Smith decide. I did a video where I mentioned gatekeepers, and in that video I referenced the excellent video on the subject by YouTuber Kyle Bull titled, "Don't Buy Expensive Guitar Gear Unless You're a Great Guitar Player." And just today, Glenn Fricker from Spectre Sound Studio released a video where he discusses gatekeepers. These are basically people that feel they hold the key to whatever group you happen to be a part of, whether it's guitars, home recording, or bird watching. That they alone have all the knowledge and that they alone control the flow of that knowledge, and anyone that contradicts their view is removed from the group. I recently experienced this on Facebook. I belonged, notice I say that in the past tense, to a group called Budget Guitar Universe. It was a place where we could all share posts about inexpensive guitars that we bought and share links to sales and good deals. I have been posting links to my YouTube videos there. I've gotten pretty good responses until about a week or so ago. The owner and admin of the group, Jojo Schmo, yes, that's his handle, could be his real name for all I know, commented that one of my videos had a title that read like clickbait. He had mentioned this to me before also. He claimed that my channel wouldn't be successful if I continued to use clickbait style titles, but there was nothing in their bylaws that said you couldn't post a YouTube video that had a sensational title. And he even praised a few of my videos and sent me a private message that said don't pay attention to any haters, because I was getting some kind of negative comments on the YouTube videos themselves. Anyway, Jojo made a comment on my last post to the group, again complaining that the title was clickbait. And I explained to him that this was how you did things on YouTube if you wanted to grow and attract viewers. And it turned into this huge debate. I was very respectful, and I even said at one point, with all due respect, I disagree and this is why. And I explained how successful this channel is becoming and how close I am to 1,000 subscribers, and how my other channel has nearly 40,000 subscribers. Well, that was enough to make him eject me from the group as well as block me. That's a perfect example of a gatekeeper. It's their world and they have no time for your bullshit. Paul Reed Smith has been singing the same tune for so long. He has no other way to look at this debate, and to him, Tonewood is almost always expensive woods, such as ash, mahogany, rosewood, etc. He often uses the comment about making a guitar out of balsa wood in sort of a derogatory way, which I can only assume he means like basswood, which a lot of cheap guitars are made from. And I've played a lot of guitars made from basswood that sound very good. In fact, Leo Fender, often considered the father of the modern solid body electric guitar, didn't concern himself with Tonewood. In a Reverb.com article, guitarist Tim Bailey recalls conversations with Leo Fender after he co-founded G&L Guitars. Bailey stated he used whatever wood was available for his body blanks. Over the years, Leo made his guitars out of pine, alder, ash, poplar, mahogany, and so on. When I asked why, he said he preferred what was readily available and affordable. And when he measured responses on his scope, he didn't really see differences between woods. So the fact that Paul Reed Smith is promoting tone woods and that only certain woods can be considered tone woods, and that information seems only available to Smith, he is revealing how he has become a gatekeeper on the subject of tone wood. If wood matters, then any wood should be considered tone wood, and not only wood, but other materials. There have been guitars made from concrete, clear acrylic, Legos, ramen noodles, the Millennium Falcon, and even cardboard and paper. Check out the links in the description for these videos. And in all those videos, those guitars sound pretty damn good. You could probably put those guitars against a wood guitar in a blind test and be hard-pressed to tell the difference. And by Tonewood believers' own standards, body material does affect the tone. But they reveal the myth of Tonewood in their comments when they start gatekeeping what woods are worthy and what woods are crap. And none of that can be quantified on an audio graph or chart. So next time you find yourself in a debate with someone over Tonewood, simply say, I agree, wood makes so much difference. I love basswood for guitars, or pallets I find by the side of the road, or Pecky cypress. In fact, have you heard guitars made from monkey puzzle? That wood is going to turn the guitar world on its head. Then just turn around and walk away from the conversation and let their brain collapse in on itself. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. Stay tuned. Next week, I'm doing mods to my Squier debut and also looking under the hood of the Yamaha Pacifica. Soon we'll be talking amps and miking amps for recording, as well as a new guitar setup video. And I'm going to be playing all these guitars in an audio shootout to compare them in a mix with other instruments, so that should be fun. This is Jace Allen, Jace Allen Guitar. Thanks for watching.